Leaks don't happen in Washington by accident. This raises the question that many of us continue to wonder about. Does the president really want a result, or does he want another cudgel to beat up Republicans so that he can get political advantage in the next election?
Welcome to Opinion Journal. I'm Mary Kissel. Senator John McCain on Meet the Press Sunday raised the prospect that the president's leaked immigration reform plan may have been meant to DeepSix the process. Political Diary editor Jason Riley, also the author of Let Them In, is here to untangle this mess. Jason, hi. Do your sources think that this leak was intentional?
Well, they're befuddled. Well, no one knows for sure, at least not yet. Maybe these things do tend to come out after a while, but it's curious. It's very curious. At the State of the Union, Mary, Obama struck a pretty conciliatory tone on immigration reform, as opposed to, say, what he did on guns, which was really throwing red meat at the base. On immigration reform, he was much more gracious. He said, things are moving along. This leak would seem to undermine that process, which suggests that it might have been accidental. And what it does is undermine a process that's taking place in the Senate. They're working on reform, bipartisan process, and then this leak comes out and you see the president's own plan and what it would do, and it really shifts left. And
Jason,
it's a plan that will be very hard for Republicans to support.
Intentional or not, they're working on a plan.
Right.
How different are these two approaches between the Senate and what the White House is doing?
Well, Obama would be happy with a bill that basically had an amnesty for existing illegal immigrants and more border security. And he'd be fine with that. Republicans want a guest worker program,
but also an amnesty
go forward. What they want to do on the amnesty is a little different from what the president wants to do. The president wants to put illegal immigrants on a much faster path to citizenship. The Republican plan would be a much slower path and would sort of say people that are doing it the right way, this backlog we have, they would come first when it comes to gaining citizenship before people who came into the country illegally. So there is a difference there on the amnesty. But the big omission in the Obama plan that we saw in that leak was the absence of any guest worker program, and we know the president's labor supporters don't want one, and they're negotiating with the Chamber of Commerce to try and kill any idea of a guest worker program or one that they wouldn't control entirely. So that omission is very conspicuous in the president's plan.
Jason, is the real action here happening in the Senate between this gang of 8 senators, or is it really the AFL-CIO negotiating with the Chamber of Commerce?
Well, that's another question. We don't know. Those talks are happening behind closed doors. But what we don't know is whether Labor is speaking on behalf of the administration in their negotiations with the Chamber. And based on this leak, they are, because this plan that the White House outlined, Labor would have no problem with that. It doesn't have a guest worker
Florida
program.
Senator Marco Rubio said this White House proposal would be dead on arrival if it landed in Congress. Why would the president want to DeepSix these negotiations when he has so much of the Hispanic vote? Well,
Rubio knows better than anyone that the president is certainly capable of undermining something already underway in the Senate. He did this before the election with the DREAM Act. Rubio was working on a Senate plan. He came through with an executive order that overwhelmed that plan and basically made it irrelevant. So the president is capable of doing this if he wants to, and that's the whole debate here. How serious is the president about getting immigration reform, or does he want the issue to take into the midterm elections in 2014?
Or, Jason, to be really cynical about it, does the White House just need to be in the center of everything that goes on in Washington? They can't let the Senate actually come to a bipartisan compromise.
It could be that. It could be that. But like I said, if you look at what the president said at the State of the Union, and then you look at this leak, something's not right there. Either the president is of two minds on what he wants to do here, or possibly it was not an approved leak.
Jason, you have sources throughout Washington on immigration. You've been reporting on this for years. In your judgment, do you think that this Gang of 8 really has a chance of putting forward a workable compromise that not just serves us now, but serves us for decades to come?
I think they do. Obama's left has been on him to do something on this issue. Republicans want more inclusion in their party, and they're looking at the Hispanic voters. So both sides have some skin in this game, and that's the way you get bipartisan compromise that way. And so the stars are aligned for this to happen. I think we need some leadership from the White House, but it could happen.
We need some leadership from the White House. Imagine that. Political Diary editor Jason Riley, the author of Let Them In. Thank you so much for being with us.